From epic gunshots to unforgettable legends,
I'm afraid the strain was more than he could bear.
Tombstone was a Western classic that truly redefined the Western genre. Here are 25 hidden secrets about the Tombstone movie that have been hidden for decades. Number 25, Director's Dream Cast. There was almost a classic Western starring Liam Neeson and David Bowie as the legendary gunslinging figures of Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. That's the untold history behind the film Tombstone. Originally, the writer and first director, Kevin Jarre, had an almost unbelievable set of stars ready to helm the project. He pictured the stoic, legendary lawman Wyatt Earp embodied by Neeson's quiet, formidable intensity. And for the sharp-witted, fever-racked gunslinger Doc Holliday, Jarre didn't just consider an actor, he envisioned the ultimate surprise, the starman himself, David Bowie. Now stop and think about that wild, electrifying dynamic. Neeson's stoic nature colliding with Bowie's utterly unique, almost otherworldly charisma. It would have been a captivating, truly alien duo in the dusty, deadly West. Yet this incredible, game-changing pairing existed only in a director's first, abandoned casting draft. It was an amazing silent testament to the thin line between the epics we see and the entirely different masterpieces that we narrowly missed. Number 24, behind-the-scene friction. When George P. Cosmatos violently seized the director's chair, the set's atmosphere didn't just shift, it became an absolute pressure cooker. A director dictates a film's soul, and here the soul was pure, unadulterated tension. Many of the actors and crew weren't just displeased, they were outright seething over Cosmatos' tyrannical style and harsh demeanor. The drama peaked with Michael Biehn, who recalls a famously explosive yet brief interaction with the man. Biehn claims that he essentially ordered the director to go fuck yourself, noting that this shocking outburst was likely the longest conversation they ever managed. But the conflict wasn't just confined to the stars. There was a palpable sense that Cosmatos was unnecessarily cruel, allegedly treating both extras and core crew members with disdain. It was a brutal reminder that even on major Hollywood productions, personality clashes and a truly toxic working environment can turn the creative process into an absolute hellish grind. Number 23, the part that got trimmed. It's an absolute tragedy how the best material always seems to bleed onto the cutting room floor, especially when a film starts as a massive 3-hour-plus epic. Even the expanded version released later was missing key explosive moments. For instance, right after the bloodbath at the OK Corral and the harrowing burials, an entire sequence was filmed that never saw the light of day. It featured the cowboys gathered around a bonfire, a quiet, intense moment of chilling mourning and reflection. Here's the real surprise. You can actually spot a fleeting snippet of this powerful scene hidden in the movie's original trailer, but it was ruthlessly axed from the final cut. Similarly, the initial courtship between Wyatt and Josephine was originally much longer, only to be slashed down. The horrifying justification? To keep the movie's pace sharp and prevent the audience from thinking the story was dragging before the main event. It makes you wonder what crucial drama filmmakers are forced to sacrifice just for better flow. Number 22, the Earp family brothers. Watching the movie, the effect of the incredible core trio, the Earp brothers, who form the heroic heart of the story, was palpable. The film focuses on the stars of the show, Kurt Russell's determined character of Wyatt Earp, Sam Elliott's famously gruff and authoritative attitude, and the late Bill Paxton as the badass in training Morgan. However, the Earp clan was actually a massive family of 9 siblings. Besides the sisters, Martha, Virginia, and Adelia, and the half-brother Newton, there were 2 other Earp brothers in the mix. There was the eldest, James, a professional gambler and saloon owner, who was actually in the town of Tombstone when the famous shootout happened. The story shows that while his brothers were making history at the OK Corral, James was likely just sitting at home calmly eating lunch. Talk about missing out on the action. Then there was also the youngest, Warren. He wasn't around for the initial gunfight, but when tragedy struck and Morgan was murdered, Warren was deputized by Wyatt. He rode out with the rest of the crew and eventually had his share of the action later on. It's interesting how a movie has to streamline such a huge family history, cutting out a few brothers to keep the focus sharp on the central 3. Number 21, the controversial casting room. It's impossible to fathom, but a time existed when Val Kilmer was not the inevitable choice for the iconic scene-stealing role of Doc Holliday. Seriously, believe it or not, the first explosive name tossed around for Doc Holliday was the terrifyingly brilliant Willem Dafoe. While it is wild to picture anyone other than Kilmer delivering those legendary lines, Dafoe was reportedly the initial top choice for the part. Here's the real shocking Hollywood conspiracy. You'd think starring in a Scorsese film would be gold, yet for Dafoe, his controversial role as Jesus in The Last Temptation of Christ 5 years prior absolutely terrified the studio's decision makers. They were consumed by a fear that the religious backlash tied to that past performance would fatally wound their new Western blockbuster. It's a surreal example of how an off-screen reputation, even from years earlier, can violently slam the door on a major role. Word is also that Mickey Rourke was offered the role of Johnny Ringo, but coldly rejected it. Funny enough, Rourke did finally enter the genre later, ironically playing Lucifer in the horror western Dead in Tombstone. In the end, Dafoe's loss was Kilmer's unbelievable legendary gain. Number 20, finding the famous headstone. Some details in movies are just so perfect that they feel completely manufactured, like a great piece of set decoration. But sometimes they're pulled directly from history, and that is the best kind of surprise that can come with movie making. In an early scene in the movie, there was a headstone with an epitaph that was so snappy and chilling, it sounded like something a writer made up for a spooky script. Here lies Lester Moore, 4 slugs from a 44. No less, no more. Now you'd think it came straight off a novelty Halloween prop, right? But here's the cool part, that headstone was absolutely real. There was an actual tombstone with that inscription in Arizona. Now, the one that you actually saw in the film was not the original. The filmmakers shot several scenes, including the one with the headstone at a detailed Old West set located at the Knott's Berry Farm theme park in Southern California. That is where the production crew used a perfect replica of the famous Lester Moore stone. But beyond that, rumor has it that Kurt Russell might have had a treasure trove of unused footage sitting around somewhere. The stuff that could make for an incredible, comprehensive director's cut. Number 19, a fitting farewell. It was a bittersweet farewell for 2 iconic actors in the movie. It marked the 5th and final time that actors Michael Biehn and Bill Paxton would share the screen. For 2 guys who seem to pop up in classic action and sci-fi throughout the 80s and 90s, think Aliens and The Terminator, this Western was the capstone of their on-screen partnership. It's kind of a nice touch that their collaboration ended with them playing 2 sides of the law in such a beloved, character-driven movie. They had a great run together, and the film provided a memorable, if final, chapter of their joint filmography. Number 18, Wyatt Earp. It's almost unbelievable to think that the real-life Western legend Wyatt Earp didn't just fade into history, but actually ended up rubbing shoulders with the very people who would define the cowboy genre on screen. After his wild days were behind him, Earp moved to Hollywood around 1915. He didn't retire quietly, he actually worked as an early consultant on several Western movies. Imagine having the actual Wyatt Earp looking over your script. He forged friendships with early pioneers of the genre like director John Ford and actor Harry Carey, who were just getting started before the Western genre truly exploded. There's even a classic bit that connects Earp to one of the biggest Western stars ever, John Wayne, who once claimed that he had the chance to meet Earp. Reportedly, Wayne was so struck by the real cowboy's demeanor that he actually modeled his iconic, distinct way of walking on the screen to resemble the legendary lawman. Talk about a direct line from history to cinema. Number 17, details were strictly brought to life. When making a historical film, getting the look and feel right can be a major headache, but the commitment to authenticity on this set was absolutely paramount. The production team truly went the extra mile to make the movie feel like a time machine. They didn't just build a set in a studio, they filmed right near the actual historical town of Tombstone, breathing in the same air as the legends. The actors weren't wearing typical Hollywood costumes either. They were in period-accurate clothing, carrying the same models of firearms used by men of that era. To ensure safety and realism, they brought in historical reenactors. These weren't just background actors, these folks came fully equipped with their own detailed period-accurate costumes and weapons. They already knew how to ride horses and handle the gunplay safely. Hiring them was a genius move that took a huge amount of stress off the main production crew, allowing them to focus on the story while the background looked perfectly and realistically chaotic. That level of commitment really showed on screen. Number 16, The Studio Showdown. This was a classic tale of movie-making high stakes, how one rival nearly scrambled an entire film at the last minute. The film, in its earliest form, was supposed to be released by Universal, and the original director, Kevin Jarre, actually had his heart set on casting Kevin Costner as Wyatt Earp. However, Costner was simultaneously developing his own Earp epic, the one that would eventually compete with this film. To ensure his project had no competition, Costner reportedly played some serious hardball. He told Universal that if they went ahead and made Tombstone, he would walk away from their massive high-profile project, Waterworld. That move worked, Universal backed off, and the film suddenly lost its distribution. Jarre had to desperately shop the script around until they managed to convince the immensely talented Val Kilmer to sign on. That star power helped land the film at Disney under their Buena Vista banner, but with one major condition. They insisted that Kurt Russell be cast as Wyatt Earp. Talk about a roller coaster of a casting journey. That kind of powerful studio leverage is wild. Number 15, a double feature showdown. When two major Hollywood studios are racing to release a film about the exact same historical figure at almost the same time, you can bet that the stakes are surely going to be high. That is exactly what happened in the mid-90s. Right after our beloved Western hit the theaters in December 1993, there was already another big-budget version of the story looming. Warner Brothers was gearing up to release Wyatt Earp, a massive epic starring Kevin Costner and helmed by the highly respected Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote, produced, and directed it. This created an unexpected competition, but the audience quickly chose a favorite. While both films were ambitious, movie lovers and critics alike favored Tombstone. They loved its fast pace and its punchy, exciting take on history. The Costner-Kasdan version, on the other hand, was criticized for being simply too long and often tedious. It tried to cover everything, and in doing so lost some of the spark that made the story so compelling in the first place. Number 14, Val Kilmer's iconic Doc Holliday. Sometimes a supporting character comes along and completely outshines the leads, and when it comes to this film, that honor absolutely belongs to Doc Holliday. Even though Doc Holliday was not part of the core Earp family, Val Kilmer's magnetic, unforgettable portrayal absolutely stole the show from the three main brothers. What made it so remarkable is that his performance perfectly captured the real Wyatt Earp's own descriptions of Holliday. A thin, pale man described as ash blonde, who was both struggling with a consuming illness and yet was the most brilliant gambler and fastest shot Earp had ever encountered. Kilmer's dedication was serious. He did his homework, even practicing his signature quick draw until it had that slick, effortless pace that we saw on screen. Number 13, the tragic aria. Here is the detail hidden within one of the film's many sharp lines, connecting Doc Holliday's bravado with a profound sense of shared tragedy. Doc Holliday delivered so many memorable one-liners in the movie that even his more casual, witty remarks ended up on merchandise. One of the best, most epic lines was the profanity-laced joke he directed at Billy Clanton, Thomas Hayden Church, concerning the composer Frédéric Chopin. But what gave that particular line a deeper yet sad meaning was the quite historical parallel. Both Doc Holliday and the brilliant composer whose music he played were widely believed to have been taken by the same devastating illness, tuberculosis. While Chopin died in 1849, just a couple of years before Holliday was born, their shared fate added a heartbreaking layer to Doc's cynicism. You could easily imagine Kilmer's Doc Holliday echoing a famous quote attributed to Chopin himself. "I wish I could throw off the thoughts which poison my happiness, but I take a kind of pleasure in indulging them." It suggests that beneath Doc's tough exterior laid his soul grappling with a dark, unavoidable end. Such a connection added real depth to the character. Number 12, From Gambler to Gotham. This was one of those fun coincidences that links two completely different eras of Hollywood through one brilliant actor. The story of Doc Holliday actually has a neat connection to Batman. First, let's take a look at the original Cape Crusader, Adam West. The year Val Kilmer was born, 1959, West played the famous gunslinger Doc Holliday in 3 different TV westerns. Then, starting in 1966, West became the iconic Batman that defined a generation. Fast forward 30 years. How did Kilmer land the coveted role after Michael Keaton decided to step away? Simple. Director Joel Schumacher was reportedly so blown away by Kilmer's magnetic, unforgettable performance as Doc Holliday in Tombstone that he knew Kilmer had the perfect blend of intensity and charisma needed to become the Dark Knight. The role of Doc Holliday convinced one director that Kilmer was the perfect actor to take over the very superhero role that the previous Doc Holliday had made famous. Number 11. The signature slight. That slick moment where Val Kilmer's Doc Holliday effortlessly rolls a coin across his knuckles, it looks so flawless in character for the smooth professional gambler, but it was actually a little wink from the actor himself. That finger-walking coin trick wasn't just a cool Doc Holliday detail, it was practically Val Kilmer's personal trademark. If you go back and watch his older films with a keen eye, you'll see him using that very same sleight of hand going all the way back to the 1980s. In the cult classic comedy Real Genius, he pulled a similar stunt but with a pair of quarters. In his star-making role in Top Gun, he worked the magic, not with money, but with a pen. It's one of those fun things that actors do, sneaking a little bit of their own personal flair into completely different roles. It makes you feel like you're in on the secret that connects all of his performances. And if you're still watching, then you might want to consider hitting that subscribe button for more videos like this to support the growth of this channel. And don't forget to push on that notification for faster updates. Thank you. Number 10. The Real Director. It's one of those classic Hollywood stories. A film loses its director and a star had to step up and hold the entire production together. According to Michael Biehn, the person who truly saved the movie after the original director, Kevin Jarre, was let go was Kurt Russell. It wasn't just about showing up and acting. Russell was reportedly so passionate about getting the story right that he essentially became the unofficial leader on set. Along with Val Kilmer, who was equally dedicated, they took on huge responsibilities behind the camera. This meant going the extra mile to scrutinize the shot list and make sure the editing was lined up correctly. Their dedication and desire to make a project a success no matter what role had to be filled was why the film felt as cohesive and as well executed as it did. They were the glue that kept everything from falling apart. That kind of dedication from an actor is pretty rare. Number 9. The most debated line. Few movie quotes spark as much debate as Doc Holliday's famous line, but first, let's confirm some historical facts. It's actually quite cool to note that the dialogue spoken by the actors during that climactic OK Corral scene was considered remarkably accurate, including the iconic retort, "You're a daisy if you do." That dialogue was reportedly pieced together from various historical accounts, including original newspaper reports from Tombstone itself. But then there was the big question. Did Doc Holliday actually say, "I'm your Huckleberry"? But even more hotly debated online, did Val Kilmer even say Huckleberry or something else? According to historians at True West magazine, the phrase "I'm your Huckleberry" was attributed to Doc Holliday in the 1928 book Tombstone by Walter Noble Burns, which drew on interviews with people who were there. The phrase itself is an old Southern expression that means something like, "I'm the perfect person for the job," or more aggressively, "If you want to fight, I'm your man." Given Doc Holliday's Georgian roots and Kilmer's aristocratic Southern charm, it fit his character perfectly. Then there were those who argued that the line was actually, "I'm your huckle bearer," suggesting that a huckle referred to the handles of a casket. That would have turned the quote into a truly chilling boast, "I'm your pallbearer." Number 8. Easter eggs and tribute. It was clear that the people who made this film deeply respected history, even going so far as to include Wyatt Earp's real-life fifth cousin as the character Billy Claiborne. But their love for the Hollywood Western genre itself was just as strong, and they stitched several clever tributes right into the fabric of the movie. The reverence started immediately. The film's smooth, authoritative voice belongs to none other than the legendary screen cowboy Robert Mitchum serving as the narrator. Beyond the voice, the cast list was packed with veterans of the genre. It's like a Western Hall of Fame reunion. You've got Harry Carey Jr., whose father was a silent film star and a friend of the actual Wyatt Earp. Then there was Buck Taylor, famous for his long run on the iconic TV show Gunsmoke. Even major star Charlton Heston made an appearance, lending his wisdom to the ensemble. It's those subtle nods and familiar faces that made the film feel like a true continuation of the Western cinematic tradition. Number 7. Walking on Water. There was a scene in the film that felt almost too epic to be true, where Wyatt Earp seemed to have had the hand of destiny on his shoulder during a moment of impossible survival. That intense, almost supernatural feeling moment where Earp deliberately charged right through Curly Bill's line of fire wading into the creek. As shots rained down around him, yet somehow none of them hit the famous lawman. In a flash, Earp closed the distance and finished the gunfight by emptying his double-barreled shotgun into the bewildered leader of the cowboys. Now here is the most incredible part. The dramatic sequence was largely based on a real-life eyewitness account. One of the cowboys, Johnny Barnes, actually survived the immediate gunfight, though he died of his injuries shortly after at a nearby farmhouse. Before he passed, Barnes relayed the entire story of Earp's near-miraculous feat, describing the scene with such awe that the filmmakers essentially portrayed it exactly as he told it. It's one thing to watch a hero survive a movie gunfight, but knowing that that moment was inspired by a dying man's testimony makes it truly legendary. That connection to a real-life account is truly amazing. Number 6. The Tombstone cast crossover. Now, if you're a fan of those massive blockbuster sci-fi and action movies directed by James Cameron, you might have noticed a strangely familiar crowd riding into Tombstone. Take a look at the supporting cast and you'll realize this. Western was packed with what you could call Cameron alumni. That legendary ensemble included folks like Michael Biehn, Bill Paxton, Charlton Heston, Stephen Lang, and even Billy Zane. What's the connection? Every single one of them played a prominent role in at least one major James Cameron film, creating an incredible crossover of movie universes. It was a fantastic coincidence that so many actors known for high-tech, futuristic blockbusters were all brought together in one gritty, historical, Old West story. Number 5. The Man Behind the Camera. One of the most fascinating pieces of Hollywood lore surrounding this movie. The person credited as director wasn't actually the one who truly ran the show. Kevin Jarre, the talented writer who wrote the Oscar-winning script for Glory, was supposed to make his directorial debut on this movie working from his own script. Unfortunately, his inexperience and commitment to a script that was likely just too long caused production to fall behind almost immediately, and after only getting through the scenes involving Charlton Heston, Jarre was out. Here's where it got interesting. On the recommendation of Sylvester Stallone, who allegedly used a similar tactic on Rambo: First Blood Part 2, Kurt Russell stepped up. Russell secretly hired replacement director George P. Cosmatos to be his on-set yes man. Essentially, Russell was directing the film himself from behind the scenes. To make this happen, Russell poured everything into the production, reportedly sacrificing sleep and even cutting lines from his own character's dialogue to streamline the script and schedule. He promised Cosmatos that he would keep their arrangement a secret as long as the director was alive. While he hinted at the situation back in 1993, the full story wasn't revealed until 2013, nearly a decade after Cosmatos passed away. Russell gave a candid, detailed interview to True West magazine, finally sharing the truth. His co-star Val Kilmer backed up the claim in a 2017 post stating clearly, "Kurt is solely responsible for Tombstone's success, no question." Number 4. A direct line to history. Having a direct personal link to the very history you're trying to recreate on screen may just be a dream come true, and that's exactly what Kurt Russell had, giving him an unparalleled edge in his portrayal of Wyatt Earp. It turned out that the genuine member of the Earp clan, Wyatt Earp III, was right there on set. He wasn't just visiting, he actually played the character of Billy Claiborne in the film. Because of his unique connection, Russell gained access to written documents and family stories about the legendary lawman that weren't easily available to the public or even other researchers. It was like having a secret private historian walking around the set. That kind of insider information went way beyond historical text and helped Russell layer his performance with a depth and authenticity that few other actors could have managed. It's amazing how those small, real-world connections could enrich a movie. Number 3, the pruning process. A frequent issue in movies is that the original idea may be fantastic, but the script might just be too big and boring. This project was no exception. The word on the street was that the initial script, as written, would have resulted in a movie that was simply far too long for standard theatrical release. When George P. Cosmatos suddenly stepped in to direct, a huge priority became aggressively cutting down the runtime. To achieve this, they brought in John Fasano for script polish. His main job was to get the story in shape, shortening the length and crucially making sure the entire focus was laser sharp on the central drama of the Earp brothers. It was a great illustration of how sometimes a painful trim is exactly what's needed to find the real heart and pace of a story. Number 2, the OK Corral shootout. For many, the climax of the film was the shootout at the OK Corral. It was a cinematic high point, and the effort put into it certainly showed. The cast and crew dedicated multiple days to filming that short. Did you know how intense and fast-paced it was? Well, the editor who was tasked with putting all those shots together was so impressed that he later claimed it was the best action sequence he had ever worked on in his career. When the person whose job it was to meticulously assemble every single frame says that you know you've created something truly special and unforgettable. Number 1, the ghost film. When a director gets replaced, it is brutal, but imagine dedicating 4 weeks to a project only to have every single one of your scenes scrapped. That is exactly what happened in this movie. After Kevin Jarre was relieved of his directing duties, the new regime decided to wipe the slate clean. Despite 4 full weeks that had been put in, every bit of footage Jarre shot was ultimately cut from the final movie. This meant a lot of great material featuring characters like Powers Booth and Michael Biehn simply disappearing. Since much of the initial shooting focused on the early romance of the story, which was a slower and more deliberate kind of scene, it automatically had to go. They effectively hit the reset button and reshot everything to fit the new director's faster, more action-focused vision. Undoubtedly, it was a harsh reminder of how fragile a director's vision can be in Hollywood. 4 weeks of hard work down the drain. What a difficult transition it must have been for the cast and crew. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.